I want you to think about the worst week of your entire life. Now I want you to double it. On a Monday morning, I walked into a job I had given 38 years of my life to, and they handed me a box and told me to clean out my desk. And then 8 months later, I was sitting in a hospital room holding my wife's hand while the machines beeped and the doctors talked real quiet in the hallway, and I knew in my gut that she was not coming home with me this time. 60 years old, friend. No job, no income, and then no wife. Just like that, everything I had built and everything I had loved and everything I had loved and everything I had planned for was gone in less than a year. And I'm going to be honest with you right now because that is the only way I know how to be. There were nights in that empty house where I did not know if I had one single reason left to get up in the morning. So how in the world does a man come back from something like that? You stick with me, and I am going to tell you exactly how. My name is Earl Dunbar, and I grew up in a little town called Meridian, Mississippi, where the summers were long and hot, and everybody knew everybody, and nobody was in too much of a hurry about anything. My daddy worked the railroad, and my mama took in sewing, and between the two of them, they raised 5 kids with nothing fancy but plenty of love and plenty of home-cooked food on the table every single night. I was the kind of boy who was always building something. Birdhouses, go-karts, anything I could nail or screw or hammer together. And that love of building things followed me straight into adulthood. I spent 38 years working for a mid-sized manufacturing company out of Birmingham, Alabama, started on the floor running machines and worked my way up to plant operations manager one honest year at a time. I married my sweetheart Dorothy when we were both 26 years old. She was a church choir director, and Lord have mercy, could that woman sing. We bought a little brick house on Sycamore Lane and raised 2 kids there, a son named James and a daughter named Patrice, and we lived the kind of life where you mow your own grass and wave to your neighbors and go to bed tired from good honest work. We were not rich by any measure, but we were solid and we were happy. And I tell you what, I would not have traded that life for anything in this world. I had absolutely no idea it was all about to fall apart. I tell you what, if I could go back and live just one more ordinary Tuesday in the life Dorothy and I had before everything changed, I would not even hesitate for one single second. Just a plain old Tuesday. Dorothy humming in the kitchen while the coffee brewed, the smell of her biscuits coming out of the oven, the morning news on low in the background, and me sitting at the kitchen table in my work clothes reading the paper the way I had done every single morning for 30-some years. That right there was my heaven, and I did not even fully know it at the time. Because when you are living inside something good, you do not always stop to appreciate just how good it really is. Dorothy and I had our retirement all mapped out, and shoot, we've been planning it for years. We were going to move down to a little place near Biloxi where Dorothy's sister lived. Something small and simple, right close enough to the water that you could smell the salt air from the front porch. I was going to fish every single morning without apology, and Dorothy was going to finally have the time to do all the quilting she had been putting off for decades. We talked about getting a little boat, nothing fancy, just something to putter around in on calm mornings. We talk about Sunday dinners with James and Patrice and the grandkids running through the house making the kind of beautiful noise that grandkids make. We had worked hard our whole lives and we had done everything right, and that peaceful, slow life by the water was ours. We had earned every single inch of it, and we both knew it was just right around the corner, waiting for us. It was a Monday morning in March, and I remember it was one of those gray, drizzly days where the sky just sits low and heavy, and nothing feels quite right from the minute you wake up. I kissed Dorothy goodbye at the door the way I had done 10,000 times before, and drove to the plant on the same roads I had driven for 38 years with my coffee and the coal folder and the radio on low. I walked through those front doors and my supervisor met me before I even got to my office and said, "Earl, the big bosses need to see you upstairs," and something in the way he said it, not looking me in the eye, told me everything I needed to know before I even got on that elevator. There were 2 people from corporate sitting in the conference room with folders in front of them, and they talked about restructuring and consolidation and transitional severance packages, and I sat there listening to words that did not fully make sense yet because my brain was still trying to catch up with what my gut already knew. 38 years, friend. 38 years of early mornings and late nights and missed family dinners and holidays spent on the floor making sure production targets were hit. Gone in one gray Monday morning conversation that lasted maybe 15 minutes. I drove home in a fog, and Dorothy took one look at my face when I walked through that door. and she came straight to me and put her arms around me and said, "Earl, we're going to be all right, baby." And I held on to her and I believed her with everything I had. But here is the part that I still have trouble saying out loud even now. 8 months later, Dorothy started getting tired. Not normal tired. The kind of tired that does not go away after a good night's sleep. The kind of tired that makes a strong woman sit down in the middle of doing dishes because her legs just will not hold her up anymore. We went to the doctor and they ran tests and sent us to specialists, and I sat in waiting room after waiting room telling myself it was nothing serious, just stress, just fatigue, just getting older. It was not nothing. It was an aggressive form of leukemia, and it had already been growing inside the woman I loved for God knows how long, without either one of us knowing a single thing about it. The job loss had knocked the wind out of me, but this reached inside my chest and grabbed something vital and squeezed it so hard I could not breathe right for days. Dorothy fought that disease the way she did everything else in her life, with grace and stubbornness and not one single word of self-pity. She went through the treatments without complaining, sat in those chemo chairs with her Bible in her lap and her chin up. And I tell you what, she was stronger in those months than I have ever been on my best day. But the medical bills came fast, and they came hard, and the savings we had built over 38 years of careful living started disappearing like water running through open hands. I watched our retirement account drain down month by month, paying for treatments and medications and specialist visits and hospital stays. And I did not begrudge a single penny of it because I would have given every dollar I ever earned to keep Dorothy here with me. But 14 months after that first diagnosis, on a quiet Sunday morning in November with the light coming soft through the bedroom curtains and her hand in mine, Dorothy went home to glory. And I was 61 years old, sitting in a house that still smelled like her perfume, with no job, no income, no savings left to speak of, and a silence so loud it was almost physical. I'll be darned if I knew what to do with myself. I stopped eating regular meals. I stopped answering the door. I sat in her chair by the window sometimes, the one she always read in, just to feel close to something that was hers. James called every day and Patrice drove over twice a week, and I know they were scared for me, and I did not have the energy to pretend I was okay because I was so far from okay that okay felt like another country. The shame crept in quiet like it always does. Here I was, a man who had managed hundreds of employees and run a plant floor and provided for his family his whole life. And now I could not figure out how to cook a decent meal, or pay next month's mortgage, or find one single reason to put my boots on in the morning. I hit rock bottom, friend, and I mean I hit it hard. And I lay there for a good while before I even thought about getting up. It was a Thursday evening about 5 months after Dorothy passed, and Patrice had come over to bring me some food the way she did every week, containers of things she had cooked at home, because she knew good and well I was not feeding myself right. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, and she did not talk about the food or the bills or any of the practical things we usually danced around. She just looked at me for a long moment and said, "Daddy, I need you to still be here. Not for me, not for James, for yourself. Because Mama would not recognize the man sitting in this kitchen right now, and you know that just as well as I do." I'll be darned if those words did not hit me somewhere so deep I had to look away for a minute. Because she was right, and I knew she was right, and hearing it out loud from my daughter's mouth was different from the quiet version of it I had been avoiding in my own head for months. Patrice had printed out information about a free senior financial counseling service in our county, and she slid it across the table to me without making a big deal out of it. Just laid it there quiet and let it sit. She also told me about a grief support group at our church that met on Wednesday evenings. Real people sitting in a circle talking honestly about loss. And she said, "Daddy, you do not have to talk. You can just sit and listen." I did not say yes that night, but I did not say no either. And for a man who had been saying no to everything and everyone for 5 months, not saying no was about as close to a turning point as I was capable of at that moment. I picked up that paper Patrice left on the table after she went home, and I read it 3 times, and then I folded it up and put it in my shirt pocket and went to bed. And for the first time I could not remember how long I woke up the next morning with something that felt just barely like purpose. Just barely. But it was there. And sometimes just barely is enough to get a man's boots back on. The first thing I did on that Friday morning was call the number on that paper Patrice left me, and I want every single person watching this video right now to hear what I am about to say because this one phone call changed the entire direction of my life. The organization was called a Senior Financial Counseling Service, and it was completely free of charge, and the man I spoke to was named Robert, and he was patient and kind, and he did not make me feel one single ounce of shame for the situation I was in. Robert told me the first thing we needed to do was look at my Social Security options, and I told him I had always planned to wait until 67 to file so I could get my full benefit, and he said, "Earl, I understand that plan, but let me show you some numbers first." He walked me through everything real slow and clear, and what he showed me was that in my situation with zero income and almost nothing left in savings, filing at 62 even with the reduced benefit was going to put real money in my pocket every single month, starting right now, instead of waiting 5 more years with nothing coming in. I filed that same week, and when that first Social Security check hit my account, I sat at the kitchen table and just stared at it for a good while. It was not a fortune. Shoot, it was not even close to what I used to make. But it was steady, and it was mine, and it was coming every single month like clockwork, and that feeling of having something reliable coming in after months of nothing is something I cannot fully put into words. The second thing Robert helped me with was finding every assistance program I qualified for, and I tell you what, I was absolutely floored by what was available that nobody had ever told me about. I qualified for SNAP food benefits that cut my grocery bill down to almost nothing. There was a low-income energy assistance program through the state that knocked my utility bills nearly in half. There was a property tax relief program specifically for seniors in my county that saved me several $100s a year. I had been sitting on all of this available help for months, drowning quietly in bills because I was too proud and too uninformed to go looking for it. And that right there is something I want every person watching this to remember. Pride is expensive, and you cannot afford it when your back is against the wall. The third thing I did was make the decision to sell the house on Sycamore Lane, and I am not going to pretend that was easy because it was one of the hardest things I have ever done in my life. That house held 35 years of my life with Dorothy. It held my children growing up in Christmas mornings and Sunday dinners and the sound of her voice in every single room. But it also held a mortgage payment I could not make and maintenance costs that were eating me alive and taxes I could not afford. And at the end of the day, keeping a house I could not afford was not honoring Dorothy's memory. It was just slowly destroying what was left of me. I sold it and bought a small, clean 2-bedroom place outright with the equity, and for the first time in over a year, I had no mortgage payment and no landlord, and something solid under my feet. The fourth thing I did was walk into the Wednesday evening grief group at my church and sit down in one of those folding chairs and just listen. I did not say a word the first 3 weeks. But I showed up, and showing up was everything. It has been 2.5 years since I sat in that folding chair at the grief group for the first time, and I want to tell you honest and plain what my life looks like today. Because I think you deserve the truth and not some prettied up version of it. I am not rich. I am not living in a beach house near Biloxi the way Dorothy and I used to dream about. I am in a small 2-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood, and my front porch has 2 chairs on it, and one of them is empty. And some mornings that empty chair is the first thing I see, and it still hits me right in the chest. But I am okay, friend. And after everything I walked through to get here, okay feels like the most beautiful word in the English language. My Social Security comes in every month without fail, and my expenses are low enough now that I can actually breathe between payments. I started working part-time at a local hardware store 4 mornings a week. Not because I have to, but because it gets me out of the house and around people, gives my days a shape and a purpose that I need more than I ever would have admitted back when I was busy and distracted and always on to the next thing. James comes down with his family every couple of months, and we watch football and eat too much and argue about the game, and I live for those weekends in a way that the old workaholic Earl Dunbar never would have understood. And my granddaughter Lily, Lord have mercy, that little girl. She is 7 years old, and she has Dorothy's eyes and Dorothy's stubborn chin, and every single time she walks through my front door and hollers "Grandpa Earl" at the top of her lungs, I feel something warm and real fill up that empty space in my chest, just a little bit more. I took her fishing last spring, just the 2 of us, worms and bobbers in a little lake about 40 minutes from the house, And she caught her first fish and screamed so loud she probably scared every other fish in that lake straight to the bottom. I laughed harder that afternoon than I had laughed in 2 years, and I thought to myself Dorothy would have loved every single second of this. I reckon she was watching. Now I want to put Earl's story aside for just a minute and talk directly to you, because I believe with everything in me that you did not stumble across this video by accident. Maybe you just lost your job and you are sitting there wondering if your working life is over. Maybe you lost your spouse, and along with losing them, you lost the whole picture of what your future was supposed to look like. Maybe you are just scared in that quiet, private way that so many of us are scared. The kind of scared you do not say out loud because you do not want to worry your kids or look weak to the people around you. I see you. I know exactly where you are sitting right now. Because Earl sat in that same place, and I want to tell you the things that nobody told him until he was desperate enough to go looking for them. The first thing I want you to hear is that losing everything at 60 is not the end of your story, no two ways about it. It feels like the end. Lord have mercy, it feels exactly like the end. But it is not. It is the hardest chapter, and hard chapters are not the last chapters. They are the ones that show you what you are actually made of. The second thing I want you to know is that there is help out there that nobody told you about. Free senior financial counseling services exist in almost every single county in America right now. Social Security filed even at a reduced amount gives you a foundation to build on. SNAP benefits and utility assistance programs and property tax relief for seniors exist specifically for people in your exact situation, and using them is not weakness. It is wisdom, and it is survival, and you earned every single bit of it by working your whole life and paying into this system. The third thing I want you to know is that grief and fear and shame are not signs that you are broken. They are signs that you loved something and lost it, and that makes you human, not weak. But you cannot let those feelings make your decisions for you because they will drive you straight into a ditch every single time. Put the pride down. Pick up the phone. Walk into the room even if you do not say a single word when you get there. And the last thing I want to leave sitting right in the center of your heart when this video ends is something Earl's daughter Patrice said to him across that kitchen table on the night that changed everything. She said, "Daddy, I need you to still be here. Not for me. Not for anyone else. For yourself." Friend, I am saying the same thing to you right now. The people who love you need you to still be here. And somewhere underneath all that fear and grief and exhaustion, you need it too. So keep going. One morning at a time. One boot at a time. You are not done yet. Not even close. Well, friend, that is Earl Dunbar's story, and every single honest word of it came straight from the heart. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video, then I want you to know something real important. You are the kind of person who does not quit easy. You are the kind of person who keeps listening and keeps looking for a way forward even when the road ahead looks dark and uncertain, and you cannot see what is around the next bend. And that right there is exactly the kind of person who makes it through. So here is what I'm asking you to do right now. If this story hit you somewhere deep, if you found yourself nodding along or maybe got a little something in your eye at some point, go ahead and hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it helps more people just like you find this video when they need it most. And I tell you what, there are a whole lot of people out there who need it. And if you are not subscribed to this channel yet, please hit that subscribe button right now. Because every single week we bring you real, honest American stories about real people who faced the hardest chapters of their lives and found a will to keep going. No fake advice, no sugarcoating. Just the truth told plain and simple the way a good friend would tell it. But the thing I want more than anything else is to hear from you down in those comments right now. Tell me your story. Tell me what you are facing, or what you have already survived, or what keeps you going on the hard days. Because I promise you somebody else is going to scroll through those comments and read your words and feel less alone because of them. And that right there is worth more than anything. Thank you for being here today, friend. Now go call somebody you love, pour yourself something warm, and remember what old Earl told you. You are not done yet. Not even close. Scrousel. Scrouse mit.